Hello again. So recently I've had a lot of questions about route planning and how I plan my routes. So today I'm going to give you a brief guide on how I do that. Now, route planning is one of my favorite things to do. Nothing gets my heart beating like when I start looking at maps and looking at possible routes and these abandoned places really gets me excited for the road. However, it can quickly become a chore. Why? Because of over planning. And I know when you're setting out on your first long distance cycle tour, it's easy to over plan. You want to be prepared. You pack too much stuff in your bags. You plan too many kilometers for your route. My very simple piece of advice here is keep it simple. What I would recommend is keeping your routes to a maximum of 1,000 kilometers. I typically plan my big routes between 500 and 1,000 kilometers, at the end of which I usually give myself a rest day where I can plan the next stage. What this gives me is a lot of flexibility. When you build yourself these huge routes, is that you will find you will want to deviate from that route very quickly once you're on the road. You meet other people who want to go somewhere else, you find something else that you want to go and see, a whole bunch of other reasons. So keep it simple, keep it short. So let's look at the methods and tools that I use to plan my routes. As I travel with a laptop, I like to do my big route planning on the laptop in a web browser. And for this, I use Ride with GPS. Now, Ride with GPS does have premium paid for features, but the free account is more than enough for route planning and route adjusting. So once I log into Ride with GPS, I click on the route planner. I then enter my start location. I move it if I need to, but just for the demo here, I'm just going to keep it as the default. And then I put in my destination. In this case, I'm going to put Fez. And again, I'm going to just choose the default destination marker just to create the route. So now you can see Ride with GPS has generated a route between point A and point B. At the bottom, it gives us our distance and our elevation. And you can zoom down into this even further by selecting a kilometer range to check your elevation at a more detailed level. This is very useful information. Just something to bear in mind with the automatic routes that are generated here is I think that they're generated by Google Maps. So my top tip here is check your route, because sometimes Google Maps can navigate you into some really strange places and you want to try and avoid that. So once I have my first draft of my route in Ride with GPS, I can tweak it to my needs. And to do this, I use the different map views that are available in Ride with GPS. The main ones I use are the default Google Maps view, the terrain view, the satellite view, and then the OSM cycle view. These are the four primary ones I use. They give you different kind of views of the landscape that you are planning to cycle through. Another useful button that I use is the control point button. So typically when you move a section of your route, the rest of the route might be adjusted. To prevent this, you can add control points. So anything before the control point will be locked in. There's nothing more frustrating when you plan a long section of route, you forget your control point, you make one minor adjustment and the whole thing is knocked out. There is an undo button, but the control points are a nice little feature to keep your route locked in place. So once I have edited my route and checked every inch of it, I then save my route. From there, I can export this route to a GPX file. Now, I do two things with this GPX file. First, I get it onto my mobile phone, and second, I get it onto my GPS device. For my mobile phone, it's really easy. I just drop it into my Dropbox, for example. You can obviously also use any other file syncing tool like Google Drive. And for my GPS, I have a dongle that I use either from my phone or directly from my laptop to copy the file into the folder on the GPS device. What this gives me on my GPS is a breadcrumb trail that I can follow when I'm out on the route. My GPS uses very little battery, so this means I can save my energy on my mobile phone by putting it into flight mode and disabling all the additional hardware like the GPS, for example. On my mobile phone, I load the GPX up into an app called OSM A&D, and this is my primary app that I use for my cycle touring for routing. For navigation, I very seldom use my mobile phone for navigation. That is all done through the GPS device with that breadcrumb trail, but where I deviate from the course, typically in cities, I do use OSM A&D for navigation. However, where OSM A&D really comes into its own is out on the road. You can see your route on a map, and also you can see a lot of information about your immediate surroundings. You can check the distance to the next city, the elevation between you and the next point, for example, water points, all sorts of things. It's very informative. It runs off of OpenStreetMap, and you can also sign up as a contributor and start adding information to the map. OSM A&D also allows for the creation of new routes if you find yourself out on the trail and you have to deviate from your original route. You can create a new route, export that to GPX, and then with a dongle on my phone I can copy that GPX onto my GPS, so the next morning I have my new route available for me. So that's it in a nutshell. That's how I plan my routes for cycle touring. I'd like to know, what apps do you use and how do you plan your routes? I know there's a bunch of other apps out there that are used and well loved by other cycle tourists, but let me know in the comments below what your favorite is and what you typically do when you plan your routes. And also remember to hit either the thumbs up or the thumbs down button and hit the subscribe button too. All right, see you out on the road.